Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our admin. The message, it reads like this. Hello, how are you? Can you please post my own story? Is anonymous. I've come here because I have my own story that I want to share with you. There is a secret that I also have. Mine is quite a dark secret. One that I never thought that I'll end up telling anyone, but I guess that it is time. You see, I did the unthinkable. I sold my own child to the devil. Right now, my child is crippled, also suffers from epilepsy. I know how it sounds. I know the judgment you might be feeling, but I was desperate at that time. I was drowning in debt. I was owing a lot of people from the banks to some personal friends, people from church. What I used to do is that I would borrow money from one bank and I would pay the loan that I would have taken earlier on from the other bank until all the banks started stopping giving me loans. Then I started going around to my relatives and I would be doing the same thing until I got the nerves to even approach the pastor, borrowing and borrowing. And when it came time for me to pay back, life was really difficult. And at that time, I did not even know what to do. I was watching my life as it was falling apart. I did not think that I had a choice at all. I then made a deal that haunts me each and every single day. Now I am left to pay a price that no amount of money can ever settle. My troubles began with a series of bad investments. I was on top of the world, living the kind of life that most people can only dream about. I had a beautiful home, cars, and a business that seemed like it could never fail. I took a lot of risks, borrowed money from different people, and for a while it seemed like everything that I was touching was turning into gold. I thought that this was going to last like forever, but I was dead wrong. The market crashed and my fortune crumbled overnight. One by one, my investments, I watched them as they were depleting and failing, and I was left with nothing but debt. It was not long before my creditors came knocking. They were not patient with me, and they certainly were not so forgiving. They showed up at my home, threatened my family, made it clear that if I did not pay, they would take everything. My wife was terrified, and my children, they were too young to understand that their father was now becoming a shadow of his former self. I tried to find a way out, tried to borrow more money, but it was no use at all. I was trapped, and I knew that I was running out of time. One night, I then ran into an old friend at a local bar. He was someone that I had not seen in years. Someone who had once been broke as I was at that time, but he was different. He was dressed in expensive clothes. He had a lot of money. He looked at me with pity, and then he leaned in close and told me about a place, a voodoo shrine, so he said, that could solve my problems, to make me rich again, to change my life. He said that it was quite dangerous, for it required a sacrifice like he had done, but it had worked. He said, you can see the proof. I am the proof. If you want, I can take you there. He told me that he had gone there himself after he had spent a lot of years and been scammed a lot of money going around visiting different people that were claiming that they know how to do these blood money making rituals. I was skeptical at first, even though I had heard stories about voodoo, about people who had sold their souls for wealth only to lose it all. But the more that he talked, the more desperate I became. I was running out of options, and the idea of having everything back, of being able to provide for my family again, was too tempting for me to resist. He warned me about the cost, but I was already drowning. I did not care. I just needed a way out. So we then went to the shrine. When we went to the shrine, it was in a very remote village, miles away from the city. We had to drive for hours down dusty roads through thick forests that seemed to close in around me. By the time that we arrived, the sun was already setting, And then when we got to the place, indeed, I saw that I had finally arrived at the place. It was horrible and horrifying. I saw skeletons as we were driving into that bushy area where he told me that there was the shrine as well as the compound of the man who was going to assist me. The shrine itself was small, but there were a lot of houses, because when you go there, he wants you to spend a couple of days whilst he is strengthening you. There were other people there, and the food that we were eating, it was the food that belonged to that man, a very kind man. The priest who greeted us was an old man, and when he looked at me, I could tell that he knew the reason as to why I was there. He already knew. The priest then led me inside in one of the mud huts, and he then made me to sit onto the floor. He began to speak in a low voice, telling me about the gods, the spirits, about the power that they held. He told me that this shrine, it serves this other goddess of money, and if I was going to accept the goddess of money into my life, then she was going to give me money. She would allow me to nestle from her breast, for out of her breast, he said that only money comes out, not milk. And I was so excited. He then showed me the goddess. It was just a voodoo idol, and he made me to suck upon the breast of that wooden doll. So I did. After that, that was when I was taken into another small room at the back of the shrine. When I got in there, then he started chanting, and he started telling me if I was ready for the sacrifice. I told him that yes, indeed, I was ready for the sacrifice, and he asked me how many kids I had. I told him that I had 3 children, each one of them precious to me, but he said that the goddess wanted something that was pure, something that will carry my own bloodline, not the girls. So it wanted my own son. I chose my youngest, a little boy who was barely 2 years old at that time. He was innocent, but I told myself that I did not have any choice, that I was doing this for my family, for their future. The priest then took a small knife and made a cut on the palm of my right hand, and then letting the blood drip into this other clay plate that the other assistant was holding. After that, he then told me that I was supposed to return back home, and when I would return back home, I was supposed to work really hard. I said, why am I supposed to work really hard when I have just made money-making rituals? He said, you fool, don't you know that you can only make money after your son has died? Go and find some money and prepare for your son's funeral. I returned back home, and I was really sad. And at that time, that was when my son got so sick. When my son got so sick, that I returned back to the shrine, and I begged with that voodoo priest, telling him that I did not want my son to die. He cursed me, and he told me that the goddess had said that she was not going to give me the full amount that I wanted, but half of the money and a lot of punishment later on. I asked the priest what kind of a punishment I am supposed to wait for, but he told me that even him, he does not know. So we are still waiting upon the goddess. As for my son, he became he is crippled right now. Me and my wife, we are both way too busy for us to mind him, so we had to find help, someone who can assist him. This is my own confession. If you post my story, I'll be glad. I'll be following in the comment section. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our admin who received this message. Strange things indeed they do happen in this world.